Okay, so starting off today's show, I wanted to talk a little bit about Carson Wentz, the quarterback of the Philadelphia Eagles. And if you've listened to this show, you know that I'm actually a huge fan of Carson Wentz. And I totally understand that recently he hasn't been playing his best football. But I wanted to explain to you guys a little bit about Carson Wentz and really the perspective of why I'm such a big fan of his. And then hopefully by the end of this, you'll kind of see where exactly I'm coming from. So there was an article on The Athletic that was just bashing Carson Wentz, saying he doesn't do anything right, saying the Eagles should possibly look into benching him. I believe there was a couple other analysts throughout ESPN and Fox, all of those, Max Kellerman being one of them, that said the Eagles should bench Carson Wentz. Here's a great stat for you guys, the people that are saying the Eagles should be benching Carson Wentz. The Eagles have won or tied 8 of their last 12 games that Carson Wentz has started. And I totally understand. I am not going to be out here saying that Carson Wentz is Patrick Mahomes, who also, by the way, has really everything better around him, like wide receivers, like tight ends, like an offensive line, like a coach. So I'm not saying Carson Wentz is Patrick Mahomes. I totally understand that. But here's the way I look at it. Right now in the NFL, when it comes to the position of quarterbacks, one guy sets the bar, that being Patrick Mahomes. He makes about $45 million a year, and what I'm about to do in this exercise is kind of set the bar for you guys in terms of where I would rank all of these quarterbacks, kind of what position I would be putting them in. And it's kind of like tiers, but I think when I'm done, you'll kind of see why I have each quarterback where they are and why. So once again, Patrick Mahomes sets the bar. If I was an NFL GM, I think right now he would be worth around $45 million. He is the best quarterback in the NFL right now. We know just how special all of his talents are when you include his passing ability, his deep ball, how quickly he's won throughout his first couple of years in the NFL. And I think we're all seeing when you combine an elite quarterback like Patrick Mahomes and an elite coach like Andy Reid, that is really what happens. You have an elite football team, an elite offense like the Kansas City Chiefs have. So Patrick Mahomes is worth $45 million. Then Russell Wilson, I would put him right below. I would say he's worth about $40 million when we assume Pat Mahomes is worth 45. Russell Wilson is probably the best quarterback at the line of scrimmage that I've ever seen. Seattle, you take him off of that team, they're a 6-10 team, maybe even worse. And the fact that that team right now is in legitimate position to make the playoffs in the NFC with probably the worst defense I've ever seen, that just shows you how remarkable Russell Wilson is. But at the same time, he hasn't won a Super Bowl like Mahomes in the sense that he was the main reason why in the focal point. When Russell Wilson threw that interception to Malcolm Butler, I think we all kind of assumed, okay, Seattle will be back, and they haven't been back. And even though Russell does everything for that team, I think we could all agree he's just a smidge below Pat Mahomes right now. Aaron Rodgers, I would have him at about $35 million per year. He is a Super Bowl winning quarterback who is an elite talent and probably the best thrower of the football I've ever seen. The only issue with him is that he's had some problems coming back from deficits, and looking at his resume and everything that he's done so far, especially recently over the last 2 or 3 years, I don't think we could put him in the same tier as a Russell Wilson. He needs to win a little more, especially in the bigger games. Last year when Green Bay made the NFC Championship game against San Francisco, not only did they lose, but I think we could all agree that game just was not close at all. Then we have making 30 veteran quarterbacks who have done a lot throughout their career, and really, I'm not going to be paying them $30 million for that long. I value how good they are and how good they've been throughout their career. I'm talking about guys like Tom Brady, like Ben Roethlisberger, like Drew Brees, who I think we could all realize that they don't have that much left in their NFL career, but at the same time, they have won divisions, they've won Super Bowls, they've done it recently too, and even though they are at the back end of their career, I'm going to reward those guys for doing everything they've done throughout their career. So in the NFL right now, in terms of the tiers, you have Mahomes at the top, Russ at 2, Aaron Rodgers 3, and then in that third tier, you'll have Brady, Roethlisberger, and Breeze. And then we get to the $25 million per year. And these are quarterbacks that have a lot of potential, guys that have done some things, but do need to prove a little bit more until we raise them to that 35, 40, 45 tier. And those five quarterbacks are Deshaun Watson, Lamar Jackson, Carson Wentz, Jared Goff, and Kyler Murray. Deshaun Watson, he's super talented, but he's also super inconsistent. I totally understand that it is really not all of his fault when you consider the fact that Houston did not really do a good job building around him at head coach or at the skill position players. I mean, you trade away his best weapon. A lot of people going into the season and really at this point last season would probably have had Deshaun trending a little bit higher towards that Aaron Rodgers peak. But I guess when you trade away his best weapon, sometimes that really is the harsh reality and what happens. So Deshaun Watson, he hasn't been great this year. He has 2 wins, both of them over the Jaguars. I think Sunday's a pretty big game for Cleveland. I'm curious to see how they come out against Houston. But Deshaun Watson would be my first quarterback in that tier. Lamar Jackson, super athletic, but he is not a great thrower of the football. And until he wins a playoff game, I cannot put him in a higher tier. And even though a lot of people are going to look at that and say, you know, you're going to put Lamar Jackson in the same tier as Carson Wentz and the same tier as Jared Goff. Yeah, Jared Goff has been to a Super Bowl. Lamar Jackson hasn't. Carson Wentz almost won an MVP, and I just think is a better thrower of the football. But at the same time, it's Lamar Jackson. I think he deserves a spot at the table, and he's just so athletic, and he's worth that to his team. It's just he has to win a little bit more in the big games in order for me to feel a little more comfortable that he really does belong in this tier. Then you have Jared Goff, a guy that's super athletic. He's been to a Super Bowl. Him and Sean McVay work great together, and a lot of people were freaking out about him saying, you know, what were the Rams doing paying him all that money? And I think they're right in the sense that he does not deserve to be making more money than an Aaron Rodgers or even the same amount of money as a Russell Wilson. But at the same time, he is a valuable quarterback. He's valuable to his team. And until he raises and elevates his game a little more, I'm not going to put him above that, 25 tier. But at the same time, I don't hate Jared Goff. I think you could win with him as your quarterback. I just think he needs to get better and better as his career goes on and maybe, hopefully, make a push towards that top tier. And for what the Rams are paying Jared Goff right now, they're going to need him to be a little better. But at the same time, I think their first priority is to make the playoffs. And I think you can win 9-10 games with a quarterback like Jared Goff. And as time goes on, you just hope that he could develop the team and bring them closer. Kyler Murray, he probably has the highest ceiling out of everyone in this group. Maybe Lamar Jackson does. But Kyler, he hasn't won enough yet. So be it. He's only been in the league for one season, so he's going to have to do a little more. But I think you watch him, and he just sparks, the potential pops, and he's, once again, only been in the league 1 year. I do think eventually he could make his way towards that Rodgers or Russ tier, but right now I'm going to have those 4 guys in the same tier as Carson Wentz. So basically when it comes to Carson Wentz, this is the point I'm trying to make here. Carson Wentz, when you look at the quarterbacks that he's in the same tier as that I have, in that 25 tier range, right? With Deshaun Watson, with Lamar Jackson, with Jared Goff, with Kyler Murray. I think Carson Wentz and Jared Goff, those are 2 guys that are going to be compared for many years because they were drafted 1 and 2 in that 2016 NFL draft. And it's an obvious comparison, but I think when you look at these numbers and you look at these players closely, you'll see that they both belong to be in that same tier because Carson Wentz, he just wins games. He's won 7 games his first year. He won a division title his second year. He won he got the Eagles to a playoff game his third year. And then last year, even though he got hurt in that playoff game, he did win the NFC East. And then this year, even though the NFC isn't great, who is in first place? The Philadelphia Eagles. And Carson Wentz, there are some times throughout the game where he'll make throws where you just say to yourself, wow, I don't know if there are 5 other quarterbacks in the league that could have made that throw. But then at the same time, there are other times when he just makes that bonehead interception. And I understand some people are going to say that the Eagles' offensive line is super banged up. They're, missing all these weapons, and I get it. But at the same time, Philadelphia, they're getting healthier, and they just need their quarterback to stop being Superman. I think if I was Doug Peterson, I would tell him, look, Carson, just take a deep breath. We trust you to lead this team, and you just have to be effective and make smart plays. That's something that for the whole game, he wasn't able to do against the Dallas Cowboys. He wasn't able to do that against the New York Giants the first time. And then this Sunday, Philadelphia has a big game against the New York Giants, and I'm curious to see how they do, because the Giants, even though their record doesn't look great, they are a good football team, and they're competitive in each and every game. I think Joe Judge has that team going in the right direction going forward. It's just at the same time, the Eagles, this is a game they need to win, because their schedule after this game gets super, super tough. They will go to Cleveland, they will host Seattle, they will head to Green Bay, and they'll host New Orleans, and then go to Arizona, and then go to Dallas. So the schedule for Philadelphia is pretty tough going forward, and I think even though they're getting a little healthier, I want to see Carson Wentz be the main reason why this Philadelphia Eagle team wins, but in the sense that just don't turn the ball over, and the Philadelphia Eagles will have a better chance to win. The interception he threw against Dallas, against Trevon Diggs, I don't know what that throw was. He needs to be smarter. He needs to be better. And I think at the same time, when you look at it, Carson Wentz, I think he's worthy of criticism when you say, all right, he's in the same tier as Aaron Rodgers. He's in the same tier as Russell Wilson. He's even in the same tier as Brady, a Ben, or a Breeze. Duh, we know that. We know he hasn't won as much as those guys. We know he's not Aaron Rodgers. We know he's not Russell Wilson. But I think Carson Wentz does deserve to be in that same tier as a Deshaun Watson, or in the same tier as a Jared Goff, or a Kyler Murray, just because he wins games. And you could see that sometimes, and most of the time, he gets the job done on the field, and he passes that eye test, and he puts his team, most importantly, in a position to win. Everyone is out here giving Carson Wentz no credit for barely beating the New York Giants, but the way I look at it, his team was down 10 with 6 minutes to go and could have easily lost that game if he didn't make big play after big play on that final drive, including Boston Scott in the end zone, a throw that I believe not many other quarterbacks in this league could have made. So I give Carson Wentz a lot of credit for that. I'm curious to see how that game goes this week, because the Giants, as I said, they could really play defense. They could get in your face, and they are competitive in every game. If Philadelphia is serious about this NFC East, and I got to be honest, if I'm the Philadelphia Eagles, you're in first place in your division, and everyone is out here saying, the NFC East sucks and it doesn't even matter. If I was a Philadelphia Eagle player, I would be very, very amped to get on the field as soon as possible, especially this week against the New York Giants, and make a statement. Because right now, when I look at the NFC, it is wide, wide open. I believe anyone has a chance to make a run, and that includes the Eagles, especially if they could get a home playoff game. I trust their championship experience.